Gohar Shahi Marhaba. Somebody has asked me if Islam does not promote violence, if Quran does not promote violence, then can you explain the meaning of ayah number 12, surah number 8, Surah Anfal? And Harjeet Singh, before I comment on this ayah, I would like to tell you that words oftentimes do not render the intended and proposed meaning if they are used without context. Do you agree? And we know it better, maybe we know it better than a common man, because when His Holiness Gohar Shahi explained spirituality and talked about his dreams and compiled a book which consisted of his experiences in spirituality and the time he spent in the jungle of Lal Bagh and the hurdles that was faced in the spiritual pathway, and most of the things that you encounter being a Sufi, when there is resilience, when there is deception, and when there is a force, a negative force, which want to prevent you from obtaining your spiritual status. Sarkar then wrote a book called Rouhani Safar. The Rouhani Safar means spiritual journey. And what happened when this book went out in public, people found it really interesting, and they were obviously reaping the benefits, because the mystery of the divine path and the hurdles one might encounter when embarking on the spiritual journey were never traced or found to be any Sufi book. Because most of the Sufi books you find in the market, they only talk about Sufism. Nobody has actually penned down his personal experiences while he was a Sufi and a seeker of divine love. So for the first time in history, His Divine Grace Lord Riaz Gohar Shahi penned down, and he wrote a book, and this book was full of his spiritual experiences which explain how negative force, you may call it devil or any other suitable name that you're comfortable with, how does this force want to stop you, and how you encounter deception, distortion in spirituality, where you assume somebody like God is talking to you, but that somebody later on unfolds himself and you reveal it was not God, it was somebody else, and you were sold into deception. You only regret. So this book written by Sarkar was a gem on spirituality, a wonderful masterclass book on spirituality, and it helped. Whenever I have a problem, I consult with the book and I get the answer. So when this book was written and it went out in public, people who did not like His Holiness Gohar Shahi for any reason, there are different denominations in Islam, and one of the main problematic denomination in Islam which does not approve of Sufism, the denomination Islam which vehemently disapproves of Sufism and regards Sufism as something on contrary to Islamic values, something like polytheism, something like appointing a partner with God, shirk. This particular denomination, which is today known as Wahhabism, they decided to go against His Holiness Gohar Shahi, and they left no stone unturned in defaming His Holiness Gohar Shahi, in derogating His Holiness Gohar Shahi, and in distorting his image among Muslims and distorting his message among Muslims, so that people must be stopped from believing in the message that His Holiness Gohar Shahi had to tell them. So what they did in order to distort his message of divine love and global peace, they took few words without context from the book Spiritual Journey, and they then issued religious fatwa, a verdict of kufr and disbelief against His Holiness Gohar Shahi. And this was done using the same tactics, quoting His Holiness Gohar Shahi incompletely, without context. For example, Sarkar was explaining what Sarkar saw in his dream. And at the end of the story, first Sarkar explained the story, and then in the end Sarkar said, when I opened my eyes, the sun was up in the middle of the sky. And I thought, oh, it was a dream. So they did not mention the last words that it was a dream. So they mentioned the story without context. And then they issued verdicts of disbelief and kufr. And this is how they manipulated the writings of Sarkar Gohar Shahi, and they tried to defame and derogate His Holiness Gohar Shahi, and they somehow or other polluted the minds of innocent people, right? When things are mentioned to people without context and they are mentioned in a way that appears to be some kind of blasphemy to Islam or to Quran or to the Holy Prophet, obviously a common man will detest it. A common man will reject it and will obviously say, oh, I don't believe this. This is kufr. This is how animosity and enmity in the hearts of Muslims started to rise against His Holiness. And this was all based on bad intentions of these Wahhabi scholars in Pakistan. And the same thing is now being done by ISIS and Taliban. They are mentioning and they are using different verses of Quran without context. And when Quran talks about killing, this killing is mentioned in relation to punishment of the wicked ones, of the mischief mongers. This punishment is mentioned for those who wanted to destroy the religion of Islam when the religion of Islam was still in the process of establishment. This is not a certificate for Muslims to go out and kill any innocent human being. Now, this particular ayah of Surah number 8, ayah number 12, let me read how they quote this ayah. I will cast terror in the hearts of those who disbelieve. Therefore, strike off their heads. Now, no reasonable person would interpret this to mean a spiritual struggle. And now, the historical context for the above passage of the Quran is that it was revealed at the Battle of Badr, a battle in which the disbelievers, pagans of Mecca, traveled 100 miles to kill Muslims in Medina. Remember, there was a time in history when Prophet Muhammad felt that there was enough hostility against him in Mecca. So upon advice from God, he had to migrate from Mecca to Medina, which is almost 100 miles. Now Prophet Muhammad sought peace and asylum in Medina, and they were at peace. And suddenly they were informed that the pagans of Mecca are now traveling towards Medina with 1,000 people, 1,000 soldiers, and they want to attack on Muslims to finish them off. 1,000 soldiers, pagan. Bear in mind, they were pagans. You know what pagans are? Who don't believe in God. Bear in mind, they were not Christians. They were not Jews. They were pagans. They were those who did not believe in Jesus, who did not believe in Abraham or Moses, who did not even believe in God. They believed in their national integrity, being an Arab. Their God was their nationalism. Their pride was their nationalism. They were called pagans of Mecca. And Muhammad became a threat to their nationalism. And now he was out of their reach. He went to Medina and he found some helpers who were helping Prophet Muhammad establish his religion. So they felt really uneasy. They didn't want Muhammad to prosper. They did not want the religion of Islam to prosper. So they decided to now attack on Muslims in Medina. And they were 1,000 soldiers. Prophet Muhammad got the news. And Prophet Muhammad was thinking, we are a small number of people. How would we fight against so many soldiers? So the total number of soldiers that Prophet Muhammad had with him was 313. Hear me out, 313. Now Prophet Muhammad has his reservations. What would happen? They are 1,000 in number, and they have all the weapons. They have camels, they have horses. On contrary to Muslims, they didn't have as many horses or camels as the pagans of Mecca had. When you are in a battle, of course, those who are riding on a horseback and they are holding a sword, they're in a better position to fight against others. You are walking on your foot and your enemy is on the horse with the sword. Tell me the chances. Are you going to be the winner without a horse and sword, or the one who is riding on a horseback and is holding a sword? It's very easy for him to finish off the other one. So Prophet Muhammad has his doubts and his reservations. And he turned to God and he said, God, help us. God, help us. We are less in number. We don't even have enough weaponry. How would we cope with less number of people fighting against people who have outnumbered us? And in reply to the prayer of Prophet Muhammad, God said this ayah, I will cast terror into their hearts. کہ میں ان کے دلوں پر روب طاری کر دوں گا. تم 313 ہوگے, وہ 1000 بھی ہوں گے تو وہ مرجھا جائیں گے. ان کے دلوں پر روب طاری کر دیا جائے گا اور تم آگے بڑھ بڑھ کے ان کی گردنیں مارنا. This is fine. Nothing wrong with it. My friend Harjeet, you are playing with the words of our holy book. This ayah in Quran does not promote violence. It is a story of a battlefield where there were 313 companions of Prophet Muhammad, and they were under attack. It was not like Prophet Muhammad decided to go and attack on them. This was a self-defense war. Do you understand my point? The Battle of Badr was a self-defense war in which Prophet Muhammad and his companions were in Medina, and they were about to be attacked by the pagans of Mecca. When Prophet Muhammad heard the news that they are now marching forward towards Medina and they have 1,000 soldiers and they are all well equipped. They have horses, they have camels, they have donkeys, they have swords, they have everything. And they are now coming to attack on Muslims in Medina, where they're trying to establish Islam. So Islam was under attack, and Islam then wasn't even established. Now, look, 1,000 soldiers are marching towards Medina, and Prophet Muhammad has only 313 people, and they don't even have a sword. Maybe half of them didn't have a sword. And they have, not everybody had a horse. It was very expensive then. Most of them were on their foot. So Prophet Muhammad was really concerned about this situation. And he prayed to God, help us. And then what happened? They were 1,000 and they were 313. God helped them. There was a gust. And with that gust, there were forces of angels who helped the companions of the Prophet Muhammad. But this ayah was in reply to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's prayer to God. And this is when Prophet Muhammad said to God, "Oh God, they are less in number, and they are those whose hearts have been initiated with your name. If they are killed today, there would be nobody with Isme Zat. Nobody with Isme Zat would survive, and your name would not spread throughout the world. So help Muslim Ummah, help these people who are helpless." God heard it. And then in reply to Prophet Muhammad's prayer, he said, "I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve." Now, a terror is being cast in the hearts of the pagans of Mecca. If ISIS or Taliban use it for Christians and Jews, they are going against God's word. This is not promoting violence. This is a sheer lie. This ayah has nothing to do with terrorism. This ayah has nothing to do with violence. Those who say this ayah promotes terrorism and violence, they are liars and manipulators. They are perpetrators. This ayah has become a taboo subject. Why? Because people don't even know what it means. People do not know, and they do not go after the background information of the surah and ayah. In Urdu, we call it Shan-e-Nazul. Shan-e-Nazul. Shan-e-Nazul, background information of the ayah. Before you comment on any ayah in Quran, you must be aware of the background information and the situation. In what situation was this ayah revealed and what was the circumstance? If you mention things without context, if you take 2 words from Quran and add another 2 words from your own self, you are actually a perpetrator. You are manipulating, you're playing with words of God. This ayah does not promote violence. This ayah does not promote terrorism. And whoever derives a meaning that leads to allow terrorism as a result of the interpretation of this ayah, they are perpetrators. Whether they are Taliban or ISIS, they are ugly people. They're enemies of God. They're enemies of the Quran. Simple as that. It's not about, putting terror in hearts of humanity today. This was for the battlefield. Why God wanted to put terror in their hearts? Because they were 1,000. And here they were only 313. So in order to keep the balance, God is helping them by putting terror in their hearts. Number 2, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not the one who was initiating the attack. I mean, in that moment in time, when he was still struggling to establish Islam, why would he opt to go for a war? They didn't have enough weaponry. They didn't have enough horses or camels or donkeys, whatever they used to have in that time. So he was dragged into a war by the fact that they were under attack by the pagans of Mecca. I hope you understand the point. Do you understand the point? Always remember, do not mention any word from any holy book, Torah, Bible, or Quran, without context. And before you comment on this, you also seek the background information, the circumstances, why it was said and to whom was it said. Right? I hope you understand. It is very important to avoid creating more confusion and, creating mischief. Humanity is already on the brink of a great confusion. We need reconciliation. We need people who are just. And I always say, call a spade a spade. If somebody is wrong, then confine this verdict to the wrong person only. Do not drag the entire religion into it. There are always bad people in every nation, in every religion. And if Bible or Quran talks about killing, it talks about killing in a reference or in a context with awarding punishment to the wicked people, to the mischief mongers, right? If killing or punishment is all wrong, then why do we have jails and prisons in this civil society, right? You want to punish the wicked people, right? You want to punish the mischief mongers. You want to punish those who want to kill you. And you have to do something in your self-defense, right? So all these things which are mentioned in Bible and in the Quran, of course, there is mention of killing. There is mention of punishment. But this is not for innocent human beings. This is not for humanity. This is for those who are mischief mongers. This is for those who want to destroy innocent people. If you don't punish them, the society will become totally chaotic. In order to establish justice, you need to bring the wicked people and the mischief mongers to the court of law. Either it is the court of divine law or it is the court of civil law. However, individuals cannot take the law in their hands. And ISIS and Taliban and other Islamic militants cannot justify themselves by killing innocent people. This ayah does not render any meaning that of killing anybody. This is confined to punishment only. Punishment to the wicked ones. Punishment to those who implant mischief, who spread mischief, who want to attack on innocent people. This ayah does not promote violence or terrorism. And when God said He would instill fear and terror in the hearts of the pagans of Mecca, this was said because there were 1,000 soldiers and they wanted to attack on Muslims who were less in numbers. In comparison to 1,000 soldiers, there were only 300 people. So God was replying to the prayers of Prophet Muhammad, in which Prophet Muhammad beseeched to God that he wanted his help. And this help was in many different forms. Like one of the forms of the help from God was that God would instill fear and terror in the hearts of those pagans of Mecca. And then this army of Muslims, which was less in number, subsequent to this help from God, would overpower the pagans who were more in number. So this is about punishment. This is not about terrorism or violence. Bear that in your mind, please.
From Surah Anfal, ayah number 10. Something Harjeet got to remember, that when you are quoting from divine books, all books are from the same source.
That's the main thing to understand.
Yeah. What are you trying to prove here? Harjeet, you are the Bible, Torah, Talmud,
Vedas,
Quran,
even Vedas came
even
from the same
Vedas.
source.
Everything is from the same source. What are you trying to prove here? So, remember that. Now, we have seen for last few decades, when people question these things, they didn't do with good intention. In the sense, they use it out of context. And much of it they leave off and apply there, because they are out to prove something. But if you want to understand, ask openly, you will get the answer. This ayah was revealed at the time in the battlefield of Badr. Badr is more than halfway from Mecca towards Medina. It's very important to try to understand and look in any book in the history. It's very important. Look in any history book. I mean, this is what we are saying is written in every history book, so there cannot be any discrepancy or anything. Now, when the news came that the pagans of Mecca are coming over, and this is the time, less than a year since Prophet's migration. I mean, they were not ready, settled, or any such thing. So less than a year, they are in the process of settling down in Mecca. So they can't be ready for war. And these 1,000 fully equipped army of pagans came to attack. Whereas these people didn't even have 100 swords. So they were not ready for battle or anything. And what they have written in the history is bad weather. His Holiness mentioned about the bad weather, and there was a storm, and Prophet prayed to God that our army is so ill-equipped, they are not ready. These are the people who do your zikr, and if they are gone, there won't be anybody on the face of earth to mention your name. And so the Muslims ended up with victory. But the point here is this battle was against pagans of Arabs. Now, the point you are making, which you are not saying openly, the point you are making is this promotes terrorism. Quran or Islam does it. That's not the right conclusion. And it's God's help that the Muslims ended up with victory. But what ISIS does, or anybody else, in the name of Islam, that's something else. So God caused terror in their hearts, and that's how even their bravest people were killed. So the insinuation you are making here is not correct, and strictly this applies to battlefield. So you got to remember that. Go Shahi Maraba.
किसी भी ٹیکسٹ کا کسی بھی جو الفاظ ہوتے ہیں بک میں لکھے ہوئے، اس کے صرف الفاظوں کے وہی معنی نہیں لیے جاتے جو لکھے ہوئے ہیں، بلکہ اس کے آگے پیچھے سیاق و سباق دیکھنا پڑتا ہے، حالات دیکھنے پڑتے ہیں کہ کس وقت بات کہی جا رہی ہے، اس کا سیاق و سباق کیا ہے، کس دورانیے میں. جیسے روحانی سفر کے حوالے سے بڑی زبردست گفتگو فرمائی کہ یہ سرکار نے جب کتاب مقدس لکھی ہے روحانی سفر، اس میں اپنے روحانی تجربات اور مشاہدات اور بہت کچھ اس میں ایسی جو ہے انمول خزانے عطا فرمائے، لکھے مشاہدات لکھے، تجربات لکھے، اور بے شمار ایسے معاملات کے اوپر جو ہے کرم نوازی فرمائی جس سے بھولے بھٹکے روحانی لائن میں چلنے والے جو لوگ ہوتے ہیں راہ طریقت میں، ان کے قدم بہ قدم جو بھٹکنے کے خطرات ہیں، ان تمام کی آگاہی اس کتاب کے اندر جمع فرمائی. اپنے مشاہدات سے، اپنے تجربات سے، اپنی الفاظ میں مالک نے ایسی جو ہے روشن راہیں اس میں بتائیں کہ کس طریقے سے ایک شخص جو ہے رب کی راہ میں نکلتا ہے بڑے خلوص سے، بڑی محبت سے، اور وہ تباہ و برباد اس کا ایمان کس طرح سے ہو جاتا ہے، کس طرح کے شیطانی حملوں سے وہ گزرتا ہے، پھر کہاں کہاں وہ مار کھاتا ہے، اللہ کی آواز جستجو میں ہے، اللہ کے دیدار کی جگہ کچھ اور چیز اس کے سامنے آ کر اللہ کا دعویٰ کر دیتی ہے، یا اللہ کے نام پر یا رسول کے نام پر کس طرح اس کو دھوکے ہوتے ہیں. یہ تمام روحانی سفر کے اندر باتیں مالک نے درج فرمائی ہیں. تو اس میں ایک مالک نے مثال دی کہ جب یہ کتاب وہ ہے جو بھولے بھٹکے راہ طریقت کے طالبان کو کے لیے مشعل راہ، اور اسی کتاب کی وجہ سے بے شمار لوگوں کو ہدایت بھی ملی، بے شمار لوگ جو شیطان کے ہاتھوں خوار ہو چکے تھے اور اپنے آپ کو فقیر سمجھے بیٹھے تھے، اور یعنی دور ہو گئے تھے رب کے راستے سے، گمراہی کے راستے پر تھے، اس کتاب کو پڑھ کر، روحانی سفر کو پڑھ کر سرکار کی بارگاہ میں بہت سے لوگ آئے تھے اور بتاتے کہ بھائی ہم تو بھٹکے ہوئے تھے، کیونکہ ہم تو یہی سمجھ رہے ہیں کہ ہمارے اوپر بڑا فضل ہے، ہم تو ولی بن چکے ہیں. آپ کی کتاب پڑھی تو پتہ چلا ہم تو شیطانی معاملے میں گرفتار ہیں. تو اس کتاب کو تو اتنی پذیرائی ملنی چاہیے تھی، لیکن کیا ہوا کہ اسلامی جو لیڈرشپ تھی، جو آج بھی ہے، جو نام نہاد اسلام کے اور ولیوں کے اور ان باتوں کے خلاف ہی ہیں، انہوں نے بھی اس کی مخالفت کے اندر اتنی حد تک جو ہے آگے بڑھ گئے کہ انہوں نے اس کی گفتگو کے الفاظوں کو توڑا مروڑا اور خواب کے واقعات کو ظاہر میں تبدیل کر کے جو ہے کفر کے فتوے لگا کے معصوم لوگوں کو حضور اکرم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کے حوالے سے یعنی باتیں کر کے یہ ثابت کرنے کی کوشش کی، گمراہ کیا کہ یہ جو ہے کتاب اس میں گمراہی ہے، اس میں گستاخی ہے. یعنی ایسے جھوٹے واقعات غلط بنا کے کفر کے فتوے دے کر معصوم انسانیت کو گمراہ کیا اس کتاب سے بدزن کرنے کے لیے. جیسے واقعہ فرمایا کہ سرکار نے کتاب مقدس میں اس میں واقعہ لکھا ہے روحانی سفر میں، جس میں اپنا ایک خواب سرکار بیان فرما رہے ہیں، اور اس میں جو ہے خواب کی باتیں ہیں اس میں کہ بھنگ پی بڑے مزے کی تھی، بڑی لذیذ تھی، یہ خواب کے اندر ہو رہا ہے. اور پھر اس کے بعد سرکار نے تحریر فرمایا کہ جب آنکھ کھولی تو سورج چڑھ چکا تھا. یعنی یہ الفاظ اختتام پر بتا رہے ہیں کہ جو کچھ ہوا وہ سب خواب میں تھا، جب آنکھ کھلی تو سورج چڑھ چکا تھا. اس الفاظ کو آپ ہضم کر لیں، یعنی لکھیں ہی نہیں، صرف اتنا لکھ دیں کہ بھئی پی تو بڑی مزے کی تھی. اس بات کو اچھال کر یعنی گمراہ کر دیں لوگوں کو، تو کتنا خطرناک اثر ہوگا لوگوں پر. اور وہی ہوا کہ عوام کو تو اتنی دلچسپی ہے ہی نہیں کہ وہ تحقیق کرے، اور بلکہ وہ لوگوں کی مولویوں کی تو حکومت ہے، ہر طرف جو ہے لوگ شیطانیت کے مائل ہیں، شیطانیت پر. تو اسی طرح مالک نے فرمایا جس طریقے سے اس طرح الفاظ آگے پیچھے کرنے سے انسان گمراہ ہو جاتا ہے اور حقیقت پر خبر نہ ہو، اور صرف الفاظ آپ توڑ مروڑ دیں، بات کچھ کی کچھ بنا دیں، تو اس طریقے سے انہوں نے کیا. تو فرمایا اسی طرح اس آیت کے اندر بات تھی کہ حضور اکرم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی طرف جو ہے جب مکے سے آپ کو جو ہے تکلیف دی گئی اور ہجرت کا حکم ہوا، پھر آپ ہجرت فرما کے مدینے چلے گئے، وہاں اسلام اسٹیبلش کرنے میں آپ دن رات کوشاں رہے، اور پھر 313 کے قریب جو ہے آپ کے ساتھی ہو گئے جمع. اس وقت آپ ابھی مضبوط ترین اسلام تو نہیں بن چکا تھا، نہ حکومت بن چکی تھی مسلمانوں کی، ایک کمزور جو ہے درجہ تھا اسلام کا، یعنی وہ ترقی پذیر تھا. اس وقت اس دور میں جب انہیں خبر ملی کہ تقریباً 1000 کے قریب جو ہیں وہ لڑنے والے جو ہیں کفار میں سے ایسے لوگ آ رہے ہیں کہ جو رب کی ذات پر یقین ہی نہیں رکھتے، رب کے منکر ہیں، وہ کسی مذہب سے ان کا کوئی تعلق نہیں تھا، نہ یہودیت سے نہ عیسائیت سے، بلکہ وہ خدا کے منکر تھے اور اسلام کے سخت ترین دشمن تھے حضور صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کے لیے. ان کے دل میں بغض بھی تھا، اور وہ یہ ارادے کر کے آ رہے تھے کہ اسلام کو سرے سے ختم کر دیں گے. ایسی سچویشن میں اور ایسی پوزیشن میں حضور اکرم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کو جب یہ خطرہ لاحق ہوا کہ بھئی ہمارے جو 313 لوگ ہیں، آدھے سے زیادہ لوگ تو وہی ہیں جو بے بس ہیں، نہ ان کے پاس گھوڑا ہے، نہ ان کے پاس کوئی اسلحہ ہے، پیدل ہیں، اور ان کے پاس جو آ رہے ہیں ان کے پاس ہر شخص کے پاس فل جو ہے لیس ہو کر آ رہے ہیں تمام ہتھیاروں سے تمام طاقتوں سے. پوری طاقتور ایک بڑا لشکر جو ہے وہ 1000 افراد کا حملہ آور ہونے والا ہے ان 313 غربا اور مسکین جیسے لوگوں پر جن کے پاس نہ مال و اسباب ہیں نہ ہتھیار ہیں. تو کیا ہو بنے گا ان لوگوں کا؟ کیسے لڑ سکیں گے؟ کیسے ان سے کامیاب ہو سکیں گے؟ اس وقت جب یہ خطرات کے پیش نظر حضور پریشان ہو کر اللہ کی بارگاہ میں متوجہ ہوئے تو اللہ کی طرف سے اس وقت اس حالت کے لیے جو ہے یہ آیت نازل کی گئی تھی جس میں اللہ تعالیٰ نے ان کو صاف صاف کہا تھا کہ آپ پریشان نہ ہوں، ہماری طرف سے مدد آ جائے گی. اور میں ان کے دلوں پر یعنی وہ جو 1000 آ رہے ہیں وہ طاقتور ہونے کے باوجود اور زیادہ تعداد ہونے کے باوجود تم پر غالب اس لیے نہیں آ سکیں گے کہ میں ان لوگوں کے دلوں پر رعب یعنی اتنا خوف ان کے دلوں کے اوپر خوف طاری کر دوں گا کہ وہ تم سے مغلوب ہو جائیں گے، تم ان کے اوپر حاوی ہو جاؤ گے. اور ایسا ہی ہوا. تو آپ نے پھر یہ ارشاد فرمایا کہ اس آیت کو جو لوگ اس دور کے جیسے ISIS والے ہوں یا طالبان والے ہوں یا جو کوئی بھی اس آیت کا رخ اس طرف موڑتا ہے کہ بھائی قتل کر دو کافروں کو، غیر مسلموں کو جو ہے قتل کر دو یا مار دو، وہ بہت بڑا ظالم ہے، بہت بڑا خائن ہے اور رب کے کلام کے اندر جو ہے خیانت کا جو ہے مرتکب ہے، بہت بڑا مجرم ہے وہ اس بات کا. کیونکہ یہاں پر کہیں پر بھی اسلام کے اندر یا قرآن کے اندر اس قسم کی تعلیم نہیں دی گئی ہے. یہ تو حفاظت کے لیے جو ہے ایک لڑائی تھی، اپنے آپ کو بچانے کے لیے ایک جو ہے مسئلہ تھا. یعنی صرف حضور اکرم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی طرف سے یہ تو نہیں تھا کہ بیٹھے بٹھائے انہوں نے خود جمع کر کے سب کو کہا ہو کہ فلاں جگہ چل کے لو حملہ کر لیتے ہیں. وہ تو ایک حملہ ہوتا ہے. ایک تو یہ خبر ملی ہے کہ حملہ ہونے والا ہے، اپنے آپ کو بچانے کے لیے ایک کوشش کی ہے. تو اس میں رب کی طرف سے مدد ہی آئی تھی. اس کو اس طرف موڑنا سراسر بہت بڑی زیادتی ہے اور بہت بڑا جو ہے دھوکہ دینا ہے اور بہت بڑی خیانت ہے. اور
Aura TV. Guidance. Brought to you